1977. That's 33 years, so in another 2 years, everybody will be able to trust me.
You won't be a new kid.
But I won't be a newcomer anymore. People are coming to town and asking me directions now, so I guess it's already there. But I've been making wine since 1998. I was getting ready to turn 50 years old, and I'd made wine once in the 70s. And I thought, boy, that was really good stuff. Everybody got really drunk from drinking it. You know, back then that's what mattered. And I thought, I'm going to turn 50 and I was going to make wine again. I better do that before I die. Getting so old that I just die. And so I started and made one batch then that was water, or it was honey and apple juice. And it tasted terrible. It also had a problem that I started it out and it didn't make bubbles like it's supposed to. Mix it all up, put yeast in it, didn't make bubbles. And I didn't know why, because this is all new to me. Finally, I did more reading and realized it was probably too sweet. So I took about half of my container out and cut it half with water, and it launched off like a rocket. Just like a big frothing. Like you put baking soda in it or something. But, right,
I can't hear you back here.
Okay. As things stand right now, I just keep track of all the batches of wine that I made, and I had to give them all a number, just successive numbers, and I just rolled over 300, batch number 300, since 1998, it's 11 years. So I guess that's a lot. Most of the batches that I make are 1 to 6 gallons. I've started out making 1 gallon batches, and you have 5 bottles, and then it's gone. And I figured, well, that's not very good. So I started making 3 gallon batches, and then you had 15 bottles, and it was gone. So I started doing 6 gallon batches, which gives you 30, which is 2.5 cases. That's not a bad size. Pretty easy to manage, and you can get started out with two buckets. Start talking about equipment here. The buckets you can buy at Walmart for less than $5 a piece, and it's really easy to start with a new bucket. Some folks would have a pickle bucket or something like that, and if it smells like pickles, you're probably going to make vinegar instead of wine. But if it's got the smell, there's some particles of it still in it, and it's for less than $5. It's easier to go that way. And I use 3-gallon water bottles from Walmart, which is, they've got a handle and they don't weigh that much. A lot of people would rather only use glass 5-gallon containers. They weigh 20 pounds when they're empty, and then you put 5 gallons of water in there, they weigh about 80 pounds, and they're tough to move around. So I've stuck with the 3-gallon containers because they have a handle and they don't weigh about half what a 5 does. But all you need to make wine is water, flavoring of some kind that you like, sugar and yeast. Or you can substitute the sugar with honey, make mead instead of wine. It takes a pretty special taste to make mead though. It's different taste. Some people don't like it at all, but everybody has a different sense of taste. Stuff that I think is sweet enough or good enough, you may think is too sweet or not sweet enough. We'll find out here later. We're going to have some samples when we're done here of stuff that I made. But you got the basic ingredients. You just have to decide what size container you want. If you want to start with a gallon, that works good. If you want to make 6 at a time like I do, it's not that hard.
Can't hear you in the back.
Okay, is that better? Never used one of these before. I'll have to practice. But, everybody have an idea of what they'd like to have for wine? Does everybody drink wine? Has everybody tried it and know what kind they like? If you sweeten it up enough that it ferments and leaves residual sugar in your wine, it'll taste sweet. But if it ferments so much that it burns all the sugar off and makes it into alcohol, it'll be what they call dry wine, which is just a lack of sweetness. Some people like it better that way. It takes somewhere between 2 and 3 pounds of sugar to make a gallon of wine that will ferment out completely dry. That's one of the things that you have to kind of play it by ear, because you have to know how sweet your base material is. One of the tools that you use is called a hydrometer. If you ever took chemistry class, you used one of these. Well, what it is it tells you how thick your fluid is. And what it does is it just floats in the liquid. Water will float at about 1,000, right about there. When you put enough sugar in it, put about 3 pounds of sugar in it, it will float right about there. And as it burns, as it converts, the yeast converts the sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide, that hydrometer will float lower and lower. Eventually, with most of the stuff I make, it goes down to about 990, which means it burns all the sugar off plus some of the residual sugar in the fluid. And it's actually thinner than water when you get done, but it's real dry wine. I always try to ferment my wine out dry because it keeps better. If you got some residual sugar in there, there's a pretty good chance that when you cork it, it's going to reactivate, get a breath of fresh air, and pop the corks back out. Pear wine is terribly bad about that. I've had a lot of different experiences with pear wine, and it seems like all you have to do is bottle it, and it starts up again. It can be set dead for 2 months. Bottle it, and it'll pop the corks out of the bottles. Had some that has gone 3 times. I've had to rebottle it, pour it back in the big bottle, and let it go again for another 3 months. I've had some of the wine, about the fastest I've ever had one go. I made apple wine out of alkaline water, which I have a machine at home that converts tap water into alkaline-based water, which is the opposite of acidic water. And I had made apple wine out of that, and it went from start to finish, clear, and it was good to drink in 10 days. That was pretty amazing. Generally, the general run of things, it'll go about 2 months, about 8 weeks. And when you first mix it up, in a day or so, it'll get muddy like this. This is actually blueberry pomegranate juice. It was purple 2 days ago. And I put sugar and yeast in with it, and now it's that color. And this is active. I just wanted to have something that was really going well, so I could show you how it is. When you first mix up wine, it's the best idea to give it air for 2 to 3 days to let the yeast colony kind of develop. It needs oxygen to grow. But then in order to keep the bacterial contamination and bugs, fruit flies and other bugs out of it, you have to take it away from oxygen. What I've got here is a fermentation lock and a stopper. Just one of those things that you can buy. You can also use a balloon. A lot of people use a condom because they stretch. But all you have to do is put that in there, fill it half full of water, and you'll be able to tell how fast that's actually fermenting here in just a minute. Didn't look like it was doing much, but it's pretty busy. But I've tried a lot of different wines. Apple's always an easy one. Something you can get from the grocery store is the best. If you have to make sure that it doesn't have a preservative in it, like sodium benzoate. If it has a preservative in it, your wine will do nothing. You'll spend money and time, and it won't bubble. You'll have to throw it away. Because once you got that preservative in there, I don't think it's really all that safe to drink. Well, you got raw yeast in there too. And if you put it in your body, it'll ferment there too. It's a pretty good temperature. But haven't had very many failures. I haven't had a failure at all in the last year, which is good. And I made right up against 100 gallons of wine last year. When my wife was living, you're allowed by federal law to have 100 gallons of wine for personal and family use, is the way the law reads. I really don't drink a lot of it. I drink enough to make sure that it's not going bad, because I could become an alcoholic pretty easy, and I don't want that. But most generally every Friday night I'll go home and I'll has something that needs work, it needs to go to smaller containers or needs to be mixed up and mix up a new batch. So I'll have like 6 ounces a week, which is plenty for me. But I've always got something going. Right now I've got about 40 gallons of wine sitting in my living room in gallon containers. There are people who come out to my house and once a month they'll come out and get 4 or 5 gallons of wine. That's their Friday night party or weekend party equipment. And I don't charge anything because it's against federal law to sell it. People, I don't know where the stuff comes from, but people bring me bottles. Once in a while the sugar will appear on my porch. And I got no idea where it came from. I imagine it may be from people that I gave wine to, but I can't say that for sure, and I'd like to keep it that way. But,
Does your house, the room, have to be a certain temperature?
the room temperature is very important to have it between 70 and 80 degrees. You can take a little thermometer and just go set it in places in your house, corners or maybe a closet. Dark is good too. When I started out, I built a rack that fit in my clothes closet that would hold 6 5-gallon containers. That made a lot of wine in a big hurry. It was in our bedroom. My wife didn't think much of that. The whole bedroom smelled like wine all the time. My wife didn't drink at all. But you just need to figure out how much you want to make at once to get started. If you want to make 5 gallons, they've got 5-gallon containers. Plastic ones at Walmart or glass ones at Winemaker Supplies. There's a place up in Kansas City called, or Independence, called E.C. Krause Company. It's available on the web. You can get on the web. They're strictly mail order. So you call them, give them a credit card number, and you can look on the internet and see all the equipment that they have. I've bought a lot of it, but I really don't use a lot of it anymore because I know what I need. But you can take a look at those catalogs after a while. If you got a big bottle, it will get kind of a deposit of stuff around the top of the fluid. As it ferments, it'll leave stuff sticking to the bottle, so you have to clean them. That's the hardest part of making wine, is cleaning the containers. If you want to buy new bottles are about $1 a piece from the winemaking store, and I figured that would be prohibitive with what I'm doing. So I talk to people who drink wine and throw the bottles away and say, "Can I have your bottles? Can I buy them from you?" And they'll say, "Oh, just haul them off. Just take them with you." And a lot of people will bring wine bottles out and stack them on my porch when I'm not home either. But if you have a big container, you probably need something like this to clean it with. That way you can go in that little small neck and get over against the side of the bottle and clean out the deposit. And then there's a sterilization that you need to do on your containers. That's pretty important. I use an ounce of bleach per gallon of water as a sterilization solution. You don't want to get it on your clothes because it will bleach your clothes. But it has something. I usually wear something that I'm not real proud of when I'm working with the wine, cleaning things. And don't get it on the carpet unless you got really good carpet, because it'll get it too. But you need to soak your containers for probably at least 15 minutes, or just put the solution like in a plastic container with a screw-on cap. You can put it in there and just swish it around the inside, and then let it set for 15 minutes, then drain it out, and rinse it out to where you can't smell bleach anymore, which hot water will do that. Another thing that I've learned a lot of stuff by making errors, just by making mistakes. I found out that with bleach, a lot of people, when they get ready to clean the house, they'll put soap and water in a bucket and a big thing of bleach, and they'll make sure that water is as hot as they can get it. Hot water kills bleach. It destroys it. If you put hot water in with it, it doesn't work. It's no longer functional. So if you want to use cool water, try to keep your containers cool. Excuse me. In a 5-gallon bucket like this, I'll make 4 gallons of that bleach solution, and you can have that in there, and then you can submerge wine bottles. You can put 8 of them in a bucket. I have a bucket of bleach solution in my kitchen with a lid on it. So I'll take all these old wine bottles, scrape all the labels off, get all whatever's inside of them out. Sometimes they come in with mold in them, sometimes they're clean. If they're too dirty, I throw them away. But if they've got something in there that cleans out fairly easy with a smaller brush, like that one, you can go in and clean out the inside. Another thing that I found out by accident is if you have wine containers, and you can talk to the people who are bringing the wine containers, tell them to pour out that last drink, set the bottle up, and put the cork back in it. If there's just a little drip of wine in the bottom of the container, it'll hold sterility. It'll stay sterile until you're ready to use it. And you pull the cork out and there won't be any mold in. If they rinse the bottle out and set it up, it'll mold. Unless they turn it upside down and drain everything out. If they rinse the bottle out with water and put the cork back, it'll mold. But if they'll leave it just that tiny little drip of wine, that what runs back down the edge of the bottle, it'll stay sterile. A lot easier to work with it if it's sterile. And another thing that I found out is when I started out making labels. I was going to make this really cool wine, and I wanted really cool labels to put on it. So I made labels and printed them off on the computer. It was a neat little design. It had a picture that kind of looked like Alco Springs on it, and I called it Blue River Blues Water because I like blues music. I figured it'd either give you the blues or take them away. But I found out also when you get those bottles back, people will bring them back. But then you got to scrape that label off again. So I started using little string tags. You can get these for under $2, about 50 of them at Walmart, and just wrap them around the neck. And when you're done with it, they come right back off, and you can use the other side or throw them away. But they're a whole lot easier than trying to put a label on. All done. But one of the things you'll have to do when you make wine, you need to let it have air. Like I had that container there, had saran wrap over the top, and then something to hold the saran wrap to keep bugs out, essentially. Bacteria needs air to live, to survive. And if you got it covered like that, what's being formed here is the yeast is converting the sugar